Okay, so this is the machine in question, badged as Clark Metalworker. It's got a model number on there if anyone's interested. Now, this has a single phase induction motor on the back, 350 watts, which is one of the problems that I'll talk about. Start-stop button, it should have a depth stop, I'll talk a bit more about that later. Standard keyed chuck, I think it's a half-inch chuck, I'd have to check that. Yeah, 13mm, so half-inch chuck. 3-inch vice table, which is another problem that I'll talk about. And it is 5-speed, with the speed adjustment being via a belt on the top. So the reason that I wanted a pillar drill in the first place was basically what a pillar drill allows you to do is to clamp a workpiece very securely onto this table and allows you to drill a 100% vertical hole in that workpiece. So the first problem that I found is I cannot drill 100% vertical holes on this drill. Now the reason for that is, you see at the back of this table just here, there is a small alignment scale and a small sort of pip just here to align it. Now, on a sort of good quality pillar drill, that scale would be machined in or etched into the metal. On this, if I just come around here, you will see that this is actually a sticker. Not only is it a sticker, the sticker hasn't actually been put on correctly. So that little 0 mark there, to actually get this vertical, will not line up with 0 because the sticker hasn't been put on right. Another point to bear in mind with this table is, although this is a machined surface, it is actually, you can probably hear that, it's actually very rough, and it is beginning to rust in places. Now that could probably be fixed by me oiling it a little bit, but it is still really quite rough. It's not a nice smooth surface. Now, the next thing to talk about again with this table is the way in which you do the height adjustment on it. Now again, on a good quality pillar drill, you would have a sort of little handle, like winding handle on the side with a rack and pinion system up the side of this shaft, so you could wind the handle up and the table would move up and down. On this, it is basically a clamp release just here. So if I release that clamp, the table will drop. But that clamp also allows side to side movement, so you cannot raise and lower the table without incurring some sort of side to side movement. Now there is no 0 mark for the side to side on this. There's no 0 mark on the column. There's no 0 mark on the back of the column. There's no 0 mark on the base. Now I have found a solution to this, which is using this thing, which is the laser for a circular saw table, which I can turn on and then align it to a pencil mark which I've drawn on the bench. Now you can probably see, if you zoom in on there, that pencil mark, the pencil mark is vertical. That's been drawn vertical using a spirit level against that backboard. The laser is perpendicular to the table, and it is not in line. Those two lines are not parallel. So therefore, you can see how this table is not aligned to vertical. So the quill, when you descend the quill just here, it will not drill a vertical hole with the table aligned as it currently is. Now I've never adjusted this table, mainly because the adjustment on it is a single bolt underneath, and I strongly suspect if I tried to adjust this, it would just make it worse. Now the next problem with this table is that it can only take a 3-inch vise. So most pillar drills will take a 4-inch vise, which is what this is. Now you can see if I put this on here, it doesn't align to where the holes are. Sorry, you can't see that because the camera hasn't tilted down. that, although it fits on the table, it doesn't align to the mounting holes. Now this 4-inch vise is probably 50 years old or more, very little slack in the jaws, very nice smooth action, probably as good as the day it was manufactured, and that's because this was made in Sheffield by Record. Now, if you start looking for 3-inch vices for a pillar drill, there is not a lot of choice. You end up with something like this. Now this, I bought off eBay because I couldn't find one anywhere else. Now you can see in comparison to the other ones, there's a lot of movement here, there's a lot of movement here. This is made by that company, which I have never heard of. I have no idea if they're considered a good manufacturer of vices in certain parts of the world. I would strongly suspect not, because to be perfectly honest, this thing was junk the day it came out the factory, and it's junk now. But it's the only 3-inch vice I could get that would to fit a pillar drill, because it's on a 3-inch table. So that's a little bit about the table. The next issue I'm going to talk about is the speed adjustment and the pulleys in the top of this thing, which means opening this cover up. So at the moment we are on position A1 just here, which is the lowest speed. Now you can see here I'm having to clear this sort of black dust off everything inside the top of this pillar drill. Now that's because if I put this up onto one of these middle speeds, the belt here rubs against this just here. Now this is a safety interlock. So if I just close this cover, start the drill up, open the cover, it stops it so you can't stick your hands in the belt. Makes sense. But the positioning of this switch means that the belt on certain speeds will rub against it and generate this black rubber belt dust. I think there's more of it over here. Yeah, there we go. Nice load of that, which means that the belt is slowly disintegrating because it's rubbing against its own safety interlock. On that very lowest speed, the vibration is not too bad. I'm just going to stop the film for a moment and put this onto the highest speed and start it up, because to be honest, on the highest speed the vibration on this thing is pretty terrifying. So this is now on the very highest speed, so about 2,600 RPM, and that will be the chuck speed on this. And I'm just going to start this up. And you can probably see, if you can even hear what I'm saying, the amount of vibration on this. So that's running on the highest speed. Now, I'll stop shouting now I've turned it off. Now, on the very highest speed there's also another problem, which is that this pulley, as you can probably see, moves up and down. Now, this pulley should be adjusted by 2 little grub screws in here, and these grub screws are as tight as I can get them with an Allen key, and there is still this, because I don't know, because it's just made so badly, I guess. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is how much the belt actually pulls that back pulley out of alignment, which is what's causing a lot of this vibration, and I will show you that. I will just stick a dial gauge on this and show you exactly what's happening there. Okay, now bear in mind I've just taken the belt off, but this was previously aligned before I ran it in high speed. You'll just have to trust me on that one. And now we have quite a considerable degree of movement. Now that magnetic base is just clamped onto the side of the motor, but you can see that either that pulley is not circular or it's gone out of alignment just from basically a few seconds of running at high speed. So yeah, basically if you run this in the lowest speed it's pretty much okay. Put it onto that highest speed, you've had it basically, because the vibration is awful. Now, a few side effects of that vibration. These handles here gradually work their way loose and drop on the floor. The other problem is the reason that I no longer have a depth stop on this drill, and I will just get those bits out of the cupboard where I'm storing them and then explain to you what happened. Okay, now the depth stop is fitted to this thing here, which is a sort of chuck guard. It's kind of a safety feature. Basically, there's a cover under here that snaps down over the chuck. And the reason for that is basically, I believe, to stop you leaving the chuck key in. Now, I see that as being pretty pointless because, to be honest, if you can forget to take the chuck key out, you can also forget to snap that thing down. So I really don't see the point of it, but it's probably some legal requirement these days for workshop machinery. Now, also mounted onto this, which it actually says on there is ABS plastic, is this piece of threaded bar or all thread with 2 nuts on it and a little pointer. Now, that little pointer runs against this scale on here, which again, of course, is just a sticker. It's not actually machined on, even though it may look like that. This is just a shiny metal effect sticker. And the 2 nuts will engage with this lug here to essentially stop this at a depth. You can drill up to 2 inches deep on this. You can set any depth you want using these 2 nuts. Now, I'm not sure if anybody's seeing the problem with this, so I'll explain it. Because of the hideous level of vibration, these nuts gradually work their way down this piece of threaded bar on their own if you're running at high speed. Now, you run at high speed basically for drilling steel, high-speed steel. There's a reason they call them high-speed steel drill bits. You run it at high speed, usually with coolant as well, which I can spray coolant into this. This is why there's this baking tray underneath it. This is something I've added to catch coolant. Now, as it happens, there's other reasons why I would never drill steel on this drill, which again will be talked about a little bit later on in this video. Now, this here, what happened when I was using this was these nuts gradually worked their way down this bar. I was drilling into quite a chunky piece of timber, so I was putting reasonable amount of pressure on because I think it was a piece of oak, so it tended to bind a little bit on the drill bit. I wasn't actually running it at high speed, but the nuts had already moved down at high speed. I didn't notice that these had engaged, kept pushing on here, and the inevitable happened, and this piece of 3mm thick ABS, just, if it will focus, come on, focus, it sheared. And yeah, I mean, to be honest, this should be metal. This should not be into a piece of ABS plastic. This should be into a piece of steel so it can't shear. Or not shear anything like as easily anyway. But yeah, so this just sheared off, and now I don't have a depth stop. I mean, I did then remove this, what I see as a very pointless safety feature off this drill. But I no longer have a depth stop on this because that just sheared. I mean, you can probably see some discoloration on this where I tried to repair this with super glue, but... So, yeah, that's the useless depth stop that they provide on this thing, which is just another reason not to buy this. Now, the final thing I'm going to talk about is the fact that this is ridiculously underpowered. So this has a 350 watt motor. If I just pop this magnetic base off here, yes, if it's going to detach, you can see Clark motor, 350 watt. Now, I very much suspect this isn't made by Clark, but I can't actually prove that. It's a single phase, I say fairly low current motor, nominal 1500 RPM. But, yeah, and then basically you tension the belt via tightening this thing, which does lead to a problem because this piece of steel is fairly thin and I'm pretty sure it's bent on this machine, but I'm not sure. Yeah, so this is a 350 watt motor. Now, for comparison, on the other side of my workshop I have an old single speed Wolf drill that was made in 1936, and that has a 500 watt motor. My Black & Decker mains powered hand drill has a 750 watt motor. So this thing is pretty much the weakest motor I have on any drill that I own. So yeah, basically this pillar drill is junk. I'm not even going to try and sell this because I wouldn't wish this machine on anybody. I'm going to be looking for a new pillar drill. Anybody who's starting out and doesn't want to spend much to set up a beginner's workshop, perhaps you're not sure how much use you're going to get out of a pillar drill, what I would recommend you do is you buy a good mains hand drill. So something again like 750 watt motor or more, with a adjustable speed with the click switch on the trigger, so you can set the speed on it. And then I would recommend you can buy them for about 20 quid, a basically clamp down sort of drill stand, and that will allow you to drill vertical holes. You will also have then a good hand drill that you can use for drilling other things around your workshop. And then if you find that you're using it all the time in the drill stand, I would then recommend that you go and start looking for a better pillar drill. Not something like this. They say this was 90 quid. Really, you should be spending 3 or 4 times that. And there's a load of oil in the corner of this, and I'm not even sure why. But yeah, so really you should be looking at spending 4 or 5 times that to get something that's actually decent based on what I've been looking at online recently. So to all those YouTubers out there who recommended this or similar drills from other brands, now basically I've seen this painted black, I've seen it painted blue, I've seen it painted red, I've seen it painted green. Sometimes the buttons are on that side, on the left-hand side of the unit. Sometimes they're on like a block mounted on the front. From what I can tell, fundamentally, it's all the same castings, all the same motors, all the same setup, probably made in the same factory. And they're badged under a whole load of different brands who sell sort of low to mid-range workshop machinery. Now, the YouTubers that are recommending these for beginners' workshops, I would strongly suggest that they have never actually used one of these or have never used it for any great length of time. This is just based on personal experience. It could be that, in fact, I have just got a very duff model of this drill. Even if you had one that didn't have the hideous vibration issues, it would still be very underpowered. You'd still have the issue with this 3-inch table. I would strongly recommend that anybody buying a proper pillar drill looks for one with a 4-inch table, or the other style of table where it has sort of mountable little clamps on it. There is like a different style you can get, but if you want a traditional one, you want a 4-inch table because then you can use decent quality vices on it. I, as I say, would not recommend anybody buys this particular piece of machinery. So this has been a little bit of a rant video. Hopefully the next video will be me actually making something, and I will hopefully see you soon. So thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe.